maybe like sorrowful. How sorry I am. It's the words of lamenting. It's a good thing, those feelings that we repent. It's very good thing. So there was once this disciple of the Buddha, he couldn't remember even his own name. And so one day his older brother kicked him out of the house because the brother was so intelligent and bright. I don't want to have anything to do with you, fool, so you're out. So the dull disciple, he was outside sitting crying. Why am I born like this? Why was I born so stupid? Why? And then Buddha happened to be passing by, and when he saw him crying, he approached and asked him, what's the matter? And the disciple said, I don't know why I was born so stupid. I just don't know. This is so horrible for me. And then what Buddha told him is that, if you realize how foolish you are actually very close to enlightenment. In this world, there are many people who think they are bright, but they are actually fools. So we have the definition got backwards. So to know your own shortcomings and your own, flaws, that's very close to enlightenment. So it's something, like Frank was saying, we should be very happy about. And so Buddha gave him like a little broom and just instructed him to sweep every day the same area, because he couldn't be too creative. Just sweep the same area over and over again. Sweep the dust away and wash the dirt away. Just memorize these two sentences. Then he would say, okay, sweep the dust away, and then he would forget the second part. Oh, what was it? And Buddha was very compassionate and, accompanying him and telling him, okay, now you wash the dirt away. And then he would be like, okay, wash the dirt away. What was the first part? Sweep the dust away. And then he did this, memorized these two, and Buddha told him, just do this corner day after day after day. And it was his persistence for 20 years. He kept at it, even though he was dull. He kept at it. After 20 years, one day he was sweeping as usual, and he was like, wait a minute, maybe there are dust underneath here. Let me move this rock. He moved the rock, and what he discovered there was so much dust from the last 20 years. He saw that and he reached enlightenment. He said, I always thought how stupid I am, but actually I never knew my stupidity is way beyond my imagination. Just like I always thought I'm cleaning this corner, but actually there was so much dirt and dust hidden. Similarly, my real stupidity was hiding in a place where I was unaware of. When he became aware of this, he reached enlightenment. And his name has been registered as one of the top 10 disciples of the Buddha. His brother, who was bright and intelligent, his name is not as one of the top 10 disciples. So I hope you find this very encouraging. Very encouraging. Yeah, so in Buddhism, what counts the most is persistence and keeping up at the good work, which is facing our greed and learning what to do with it. So today we're talking about greed, and the second part is about, this one we kind of mentioned, desire for food. People say, I get satisfied after I eat a good meal, but then aren't we hungry again? And the second problem is, problem or issue is that our greed is dreadful, Buddha said. Why? Because there is no end. For example, desire for food, like when I was a kid, this was the ice cream or popsicles we had made of lemongrass. So, it was my favorite popsicles. And basically that was it. This one and a chocolate flavor, not many different varieties, many like some 40 years ago. And then they started having different types of popsicles, like this one with the chocolate. You remember that? And the one I was looking, I couldn't find the picture. There was a perfect lining here. You could split it very cleanly, so you could handle it. This one, yeah, two sticks. Oh, you remember the two sticks? Yeah, that was one of my favorite too. And then, this one came out. You don't even have to wait for the popsicle to melt. This one is just much faster. You can get your desire for sweetness fulfilled. And then now we have this 50 flavors of ice cream. So, who knows what comes next? It's kind of scary. And so these desires, they're all, endless. And desire for money, for lust, and desire for fame, desire for sleep. Sleep also includes rest. So think about washing clothes in the past, Like when my sister is 10 years younger than me, so I could see how my mom had to, change her diapers or whatever. Those days we didn't have disposable diapers. She had to wash them and hang them, let them dry, and reuse them. Yeah. Now I see heroes. Many diapers just throw it. So easy, one after another. It's no problem, right? They poop, okay, that's the call of nature, just next. It's very convenient and it's good. But, there was a time we had to wash clothes in the river with a washboard, like our maybe parents or grandparents probably. And because it's too much work, so they invented the washing machine. And now all we have to do is push a button. Very easy. But do you look forward to your laundry day? It's very easy. Just push a button. People told me yesterday, oh, I still have to move the clothes from one to the other. This is too much work. But actually, before this washing machine was invented, it had a wringer. You had to squeeze the water out manually. Can you imagine that? And my friend in Japan had one actually, so I saw it. She would spend a couple of hours. And then when I was moving to LA, I gave my own washing machine to her. She was so happy. Yeah, but the thing is, no matter how convenient life is becoming, we are not getting happier. Don't you think something is wrong here? That's the endless nature of our greed. So no matter how much we fulfill our greed, we're not going to get to happiness. And for automobiles too, in Japan, you sit in the car, the driver, and they have a specific name for the person who sits next to the driver. They call that person driver's assistant, even today. Yeah, do you know why?
Because you're supposed to be helping.
Helping somehow, right? Yeah, these days we don't help so much other than keeping them company so they don't doze off, maybe. That's kindness, right? Because if you doze off, it might happen to the driver too. But actually, long time ago, I heard, I've never seen them, but the car, the person sitting next to the driver had to get out of the car and crank it up. Otherwise, the engine wouldn't start, right? Something like that. I've heard.
That was at the beginning of
Automobiles.
automobiles.
Right. So in Japan, they kept the name. The person who sits next to the driver is known as driver's assistant seat. And they still use it for buses, which is something very good in Japan. In Japan, when we go to Tokyo airport, then we have to take a night bus to go to Toyama. You can fly also, but we would take a night bus to go to Toyama. It's like an 8-hour ride. And it goes at nighttime, so the driver is kind of tired. So the driver's assistant, they always work in pair, and they take turns. I think it's a very good system to prevent accidents. So still it's providing some kind of assistance. But you can see how dreadful greed can be. Yeah. Do you agree? Yeah. We were going to have a discussion here, but since we're running out of time, so because we are troubled and tormented by these passions, desires, greed, many Buddhist monks or many religious people in general, they try to eliminate these desires. Go to the mountain and don't get married. Yeah. Because we get married, they have to get divorced. If you never get married, no trouble of that, right? And you see, there was a joke about this one too. So there was a person in the mountain, and he was a monk, new monk, and they gave him the privilege of copying one of the sutras. And so he was like, oh, but this sutra is a copy. I want the original one to make sure it's correct. And the original one is all the way in the basement. So they gave him permission. So he went all the way to the basement and he read the original one. He came out and he was like, no, no, no. And they were like, what happened? He was like, oh, it is celebrate, celebrate. But as they got copied, it became celibate. They missed the R. So many people think in order to become happy, they have to remain celibate or they have to eliminate their worldly passions. That means they have to kill the blue dragon, they think. This is one way of thinking. The other way is fulfill all your desires one after another, knowing that they're endless. But that doesn't work either. So Buddhism's approach is neither of these two. A true or original form of Buddhism teaches that while having these worldly passions, there is a world where they can turn these passions, they can turn to joy. And this is called as the world of no hindrance. So worldly passions that trouble and torment us, they can become the source of our joy, and so they no longer hinder us. This is the ultimate goal in Buddhism. So the goal of Buddhism is to obtain this world of no hindrance, also known as attaining absolute happiness. And we show it using a vertical line because it takes no time to cross a vertical line. You know, a line has no width. I mean, it shows like it has like a little few millimeters, but actually it has no width. So it takes no time to get to absolute happiness. And Master Shinran is the person who teaches us we can attain it now while we are living in this life. Yes. And so the way we can go forward is by listening to the teachings of Buddhism. So we are all here listening, so for sure we got closer to absolute happiness. Yeah, so that's how we are going forward towards attaining this absolute happiness. And this is a poem by Master Shinran. Hindrances of sin become the substance of merit. It is just as with ice and water. The greater the ice, the greater the water. The greater the hindrance, the greater the virtue. And you can read more about it on page 164 of the book You Were Born for a Reason. So basically, before the Ichinen salvation, the vertical line, getting to that point, we only suffer because of our desires and worldly passions. But once we pass that vertical line, we fulfill the purpose of life, all of those passions, they become the substance of merit and virtue. So just like the relationship between the ice and water, when you have a small block of ice, when it melts, it produces just a little bit of water. But if it's a big block of ice, when it melts, you will have a greater amount of water. So the more we become aware of these hindrances, the greater our joy and happiness will be. So let us listen to the teachings until we experience that for ourselves. Now we're going to sing the song of Amida's grace and virtue. We sing in English. Yeah, so in English it will be in the chanting supplement at the very last page, the song of Amida's grace and virtue.
Compassion, the grace and virtue of Amida's great compassion. Amida's must repay, though I work myself to the bone. Grace and virtue of the teachers who led me, I must repay, though I work myself to these. The grace and virtue of God's great compassion, I must repay, though I work myself to the bone. The grace and virtue of the teachers who led me, I must repay, though I work myself to thee.
That's all. Let me close the